So the story in Roscommon, I will start off, just give you a brief context of where the town teams arose out of. I'll give you a bit of a background on the process of how they were developed, and I'll finish up with some projects that we have developed and success stories so far. So during 2014-2015, Roscommon County Council set about gathering information for their local economic community plan. As you can see, we were just coming out of a period of economic decline, and some of the information we gathered was pretty scary reading for all involved. We had a brain drain, we had the second lowest graduate retention rate in the country, we had low levels of entrepreneurship, deficits in community infrastructure, our population increase was way behind the national average, some of our small towns and villages were suffering decline, dereliction, underperforming tourism, low levels of new job creation, and poor levels of collaboration among the local authority, communities and businesses. So not good reading by any standard, and unfortunately this became a harsh reality in a lot of our towns across the county. There's not just one reason for dereliction and decline in our towns, there's a number of reasons going across a number of years. The economic downturn and collapse, obviously the blight of immigration, the new reality of online shopping, which is a curse for some retail shops within town centres, closure of commercial units, and more importantly the overhead living within those commercial units, which kind of has a devastating impact on the town centres themselves. People developed an obsession with living in the countryside and getting their big 1 acre sites in the countryside, and the slow and painful weakening removal of the actual heart of the town centres. Moving on from this, the actual peoples themselves in the towns had lost interest, the community spirit had faded in some towns, the broader social, economic and cultural needs sometimes wasn't developed or promoted, and the stronger towns across the country really moved ahead. We know those towns, you know, the Westports, the Killarneys. So from a local authority perspective, why was now the time to develop the town teams? Why was revitalising our towns? Why was now such a good idea? Well, as people spoke earlier about national policy, so in 2014 a national policy directive was brought in, the Local Government Reform Act 2014, which directs local authorities to refocus on community and enterprise and development. So regardless of what section you are in a local authority, if it's rates, planning, water, housing, you now have an enterprise development focus. So that was really a key piece of policy change that assisted the development of the town teams, a direction to change effectively, and it's the first time that the policy alignment was there across all the departments in the local authorities. And the Putting People First programme was the key piece of legislation within that. So what did Roscommon County Council do to adopt that piece of policy at a local level? So the key actions: first and foremost, our members had the foresight to agree to not give a 2% reduction in business rates. They agreed to give a 1% reduction and hold on to the other 1% and set up a business, enterprise and innovation fund. And this fund was used to fund the town teams. Now in total it works out at about 100,000 per annum, and split between 6 town teams it roughly works out at €17,000. Not a significant amount of money, but we use it cleverly, or we like to think so. So from there, the local authority came up with the town team proposal. So what is a town team? It's basically an umbrella committee of community sector, business groups, enterprise bodies and voluntary sectors that are active within our key towns, supported by the key agencies, obviously the local authority. We have an excellent relationship with the local enterprise office and the Roscommon Leader Partnership. So we all work together during the initial stages to roll this out, and they provide a collaborative approach to identifying the priorities within towns and planning for towns' futures. So the town teams were set up in early 2015 under these core principles, that those who live and work within the towns should obviously be involved in the design and delivery of solutions for their towns. You know, a lot of people working in the local authorities or in the leader partnerships don't actually live in the towns in Roscommon, so it only makes sense to have a group active within the towns that actually know what the needs of the towns are, and to give those people an opportunity to voice those needs. We asked each town team to adopt a constitution. We gave them, I have a draft copy over there, a draft constitution, and we allowed them to tailor it to the needs and demands of their own towns. Obviously 6 different town teams, 6 different constitutions, but we gave them a draft and allowed them to adopt their own version of that. And then obviously they are required to expend public finances, so this is something that we try not to be a blockage to them, but obviously there are restrictions and procedures there with regards to procurement and so on that have to be followed, but we support our town teams in that regard and try and not let it become too much of a roadblock to them. So more of the core principles. Each town was asked to create a vision and identity which was separate to each of the other towns. So we have 6 different town teams, each with a different vision and identity, and that's really to stop them all fighting over the same funding pot, coming up with the same ideas. So we asked them to come up with a unique focus, a unique brand, and try and develop something around that brand. Try it out, see what you come up with, stick with the brand. If you're going to fail, fail at the start. Don't be afraid to fail, don't be afraid to try things, don't be afraid to come up with new ideas. We have to give people the opportunities to do this. We instructed town teams that their funding could roll over, so it doesn't have to be all spent in the first year. It can be all front-loaded into the front of the first year, or it could be backed to the back of the 5-year, depending on the projects that they came up with. We very much gave them the autonomy to roll the funding whichever way they felt fit. They were facilitated to develop 5-year plans. These plans were to fit in under the objectives of the local economic community plan of the local authority. Rather than having 6 plans that were all over the place, we tried to have a collaborative approach where we all have the one vision and trying to get all of the same objectives identified and actions to meet them. We advised the town teams and really encouraged them to use their annual funding to get matched funding for bigger pots of money, to get legacy projects and sustainable projects that could really have an economic impact in their towns. While they also were encouraged to develop the smaller projects specifically at the start for quick wins, to get some good PR and then get their names out there, we do really encourage them to get match funding at every possible opportunity. So what did we as a local authority do to support the town teams? So we provide a town team coordinator, that's myself, so I'm very busy every day of the week coordinating all of the activities and meeting and administration, and there's a lot of work involved there, believe me. Then we had capacity building through extensive facilitation, so in each town we had extensive facilitation sessions with each group in each town to get the vision and get their action plans together and up and printed and help them out with that. That was a pretty long process and very enjoyable. We assisted the committees to carry out the town health checks, identify their strengths, weaknesses and how they can turn those into opportunities. We gave social inclusion training to each town to ensure even minority groups are represented on each committee. We assisted them with governance, the famous G word that everybody has mentioned so far. At the start we assisted the town teams to set up bank accounts, and we very much worked off of that kind of tidy town sort of a structure. But as the projects got bigger and more long term, we assisted them to establish as companies limited by guarantee to protect everyone involved and to ensure that the appropriate governance procedures and expenditure of public finances were covered and that everybody was protected in that regard. And then this year our Chief Executive agreed to provide a town planner to tackle the dereliction and guide the town centre development and provide a bit of expertise for our committees on that. So the town centre planning unit, some of the aims and challenges: ensuring the retention of a strong residential community at the heart of town centre life, providing a network of high quality urban spaces to benefit the lives of town centre communities, and the development of a network of complementary functions to ensure the daytime, evening and nighttime economy thrived in each of the town centres. Some of the challenges so far that they've faced: designing in flood zones, some new flood zones. I've been informed we're locked in a 100-year cycle, so that our flood zones are probably going to get worse before they get better. Quality and choice of town centre housing can be a challenge, differing requirements for 6 different towns, and the inaccessibility to backlands. If you even take the example of Kilkenny, how they have managed to use their alleyways and back streets and develop them, it's really fantastic. Just having a walk around the city last night, that's definitely something we'll be looking at in Roscommon. And the redundant configuration, again, I'm not a planner, so I've been given all this information and learning as I go along. So I was informed that A lot of our towns in Roscommon and across the country were developed initially with their backs facing onto amenities like parks and canals and rivers, because there was no storage or waste system. So these amenities were actually used to dispose of the waste, and this is how our towns were developed. And so the planners are now tasked with turning that around and getting our buildings facing these amenities. Some of the solutions that they have given so far: so towns are for people should be reflected in the design concept. Contours and slopes should be used to identify key features. The concept of enclosure, so high buildings kind of to enclose town centre spaces and give them a real public friendly focus. Active frontage, functional usage, and create more walkable settlements. So the town planning unit is just in operation this year, so they have drawn up 2 town centre plans so far. And just as an example of how the local authority are actually listening to their town teams and working with them, the first town centre plan that was developed was put before one of the town teams earlier this year, and the town team didn't want it, didn't like it, rejected it. So the local authority took that on board, scrapped the plans, and now we're back to the drawing board, working more collaboratively with the town team to develop something that they feel is more suitable for their town. So progress so far of the town teams. So as we said already, the 6 groups are established as companies limited by guarantee. There is a concrete governance structure in place. So with the change in local government in 2014, town councils were abolished, and these have been replaced, I'm sure as you're all aware, with municipal districts. So the town teams, if we break it down to a ground level, are split up into individual project groups. On a monthly basis, those project groups will report to the town team. The town team will report to the county forum, which is on a bi-monthly basis, where all the officers of the 6 town teams come together to share all of what they're doing, to ensure that they're not copying each other, and possibly come together with some proposals for county-wide projects. And then annually, each individual town team will report into their own municipal district, and we would very much support them in developing those reports and getting them out on an annual basis to assist with the admin side of things. So the 6 action plans have been developed for each town team, and long-term, short-term and medium-term project work is very much underway. So on a short-term basis, I spoke to you earlier about each town having an individual kind of brand or identity, and being a businessman, you never miss an opportunity to sell. So hopefully there's one for everyone in the audience. We just assisted them to put together this brochure, which very much emphasises the brand identity of each town, and just gives you an idea of what we're talking about. We very much identify business champions in each town and town team champions. And so the 6 kind of brands and identities that we came up with, or the town teams, came up with, in Ballahadreen they chose the creativity sector, Boyle looked at tourism and arts, Castlereagh food and drink, Monksland the meditech and pharma sector, Roscommon enterprise and innovation, and Strokestown heritage. And this very much fits in with the kind of strengths that would already be in the towns, included with some kind of innovative ideas from the town teams themselves. So just an idea of some of the medium-term projects that took place. On the left-hand side you will see a mural. This is a back street in Boyle, and that is Unawan. I'm not sure if any of you are aware of the very famous mystical love story of Unawan and Lougheed Forest Park in Castle Island. If you're not, please come down and visit, we'd be happy to tell you. But this was just a fantastic collaborative project between the local authority, the local leader partnership, and a group of 10 youths from disadvantaged backgrounds in Boyle. There was a separate wall that there was a 1-week workshop for the youths and a local artist, and the workshop was on mural drawing and how mural drawing can be used to develop town centres. So the kids were given free rein on the smaller wall down the road, and they had a workshop during the week, and then at the end of the workshop the artist painted this mural onto this building in Boyle. As you can see, there's an alleyway to the right hand side. It's very much run down, dilapidated area, and it's just been a fantastic project to kind of light up the area, get people aware of our back streets, and kind of kickstart the whole redevelopment of our back streets in the town. And it was a great way we could involve the local community and local youth groups in that as well. On the right hand side, that premises is the Boyle Courthouse. Boyle Courthouse is a pretty famous historic building in Boyle. I believe it was host to the first election after 1916. I believe it was in 1917 that the first member was elected in Boyle Courthouse, so it has a significant historic background. After the town councils were abolished in 2014, there was no longer a use for the courthouse in Boyle, so it started to run into a dilapidated state fairly quickly. So a local group got together, and under the town team they secured funding under the Town and Village Renewal Scheme to do up the courthouse and get a new purpose for it. Now the platform you see at the front is actually a raised platform. That's a map of Ireland, and the intention is over the next couple of months that one of the biggest model railways in the country will be placed on this platform, and that the courthouse will be used as a tourism amenity all year round going forward. So very much fitting in with their brand there. The picture doesn't do it justice. They've completely refurbished the entire courthouse premises, new windows, floors, radiators, everything. It's really a fantastic job down there. Castlereagh have developed an interactive website. They realised that there are an abundance of groups active in the town, and they all have their own Facebook pages, sports groups, business groups, community groups, and all this information was thrashing around the place, but nobody was bringing it all together. So they decided to set up their own website to host all of this information, and it very much works as a community dashboard for all of that information. It takes all that information and puts it onto one platform so everyone can see what's going on, and they very much promote business and events in the town itself. And on the left hand side, Monksland, which is a suburb of Athlone, it's a very new town and has different needs compared to the other 5 which were all established towns. Monksland realised that they needed some community amenities to develop as a town, so a playground was one of the things that they identified, and under the Town and Village Renewal Scheme funding they secured funding for that, and the playground is there, and that was opened recently, so they're very impressed with that. During the medium term process, the opportunity arose for our town teams to enter an enterprise town competition which was run by Bank of Ireland. It was a pilot competition. So we put forward 4 of our town teams: Ballahadreen, Roscommon, Boyle and Castlereagh. This involved the towns hosting the enterprise town judges, putting together an interactive display for the judges, answering questions, and bringing all the groups together in the town to highlight the enterprises that are in the town on the day. Fantastic PR exercise for the town teams and for the towns themselves. I think the biggest kind of win out of it was that it brought all the groups together and showed them what they could achieve on the day, and there was some really positive feedback from it. And even more positive, Castlereagh won a Merit Award, Boyle won the overall county award, and to our delight Boyle won the national award. So I just have a quick video here.
On behalf of Boyle Town Team and Boyle Chamber of Commerce, a very warm welcome to the enterprise judges here today. We are lucky to live and work in this beautiful part of Ireland. And this short clip will show you Boyle in all its glory before you venture out later to see it in person.
So just moving on to some of the more long-term projects. So as we spoke earlier about our brands and our identities, Castlereagh took on the brand of a food and food creativity, and that kind of fits in with what the long-term vision for the town is from a local authority perspective. We have been working over the last couple of years to develop a food hub in Castlereagh, and it was opened last month. So this food hub will host facilities for 12 small medium food enterprises to establish in Castlereagh, and even more importantly than that, there will be 2 kitchens there which Galway Roscommon Educational Training Board will host qualified cookery courses in. So it's allowing people in the area to actually get qualified in their hometowns. It'll bring people back into Castlereagh, and it will also cover over one of the sectors where we identified a weakness, which was food enterprise in the county. So that very much fits into the long-term vision of Castlereagh, and the town team there are working away on building synergies and projects off of the food enterprise brand. We mentioned Monksland and Roscommon with the innovation and the pharma. So recently the local enterprise offices in Galway and Roscommon along with Westwick came together and put in an application to develop an innovation centre in Roscommon and Ballinasloe. So that application has gone in, and when it's successful, fingers crossed, the intention is that the region will then be an enterprise and innovation hub for the western region. This potentially has the potential to bring up to 1,000 high value jobs and bring people back from the Dublins and the Galways and get them to set up their business in Roscommon. It'll give our entrepreneurs more opportunity to set up small, medium enterprises, and hopefully it will give our graduates more opportunities to set up and get their first job in the county, which is a big objective of ours. One of the longer term projects in Boyle, as some of you may or may not be aware, Boyle sits on the shores of Lough Forest Park, which is a massive tourism amenity in the western region. It gets over 200,000 visitors per annum, but Boyle would feel that they haven't got the benefit out of that for a number of reasons. Boyle suffered significantly during the economic downturn and would have suffered with dereliction in key town centre premises. One of these town centre premises would have been the hotel in Boyle, the Royal Hotel, which run into dilapidation and unfortunately closed a good number of years ago. More recently, the County Council has bought the Royal Hotel site, and we are currently working on plans to redevelop the town centre of Boyle. As part of these plans, a member of the town team in Boyle came up with an idea of a scattered hotel. Now, it's an Italian concept, Alberge del Fuso, I believe is the Italian version of it, where individual premises throughout the towns give up a room within their premises. Each of those rooms is done up to a 3 or 4 star standard, and one of these premises operates as a reception area for a hotel. So you go to the reception area, you check into the hotel, you get your key, and then someone from the hotel brings you to your room, which is scattered within 200 to 500 metres in different premises around the towns. So it's an innovative concept. It's currently gone to feasibility study stage. We are really hopeful that it gets the green light, and we're very supportive of it. And the idea is then that there will be a hotel that's really embedded in the community. It's not a fantastic glass structure over on the edge of town. It's very much based in community businesses. The local population are really encouraged by it. Up to 13 premises owners have already set up their own group and identified premises and rooms that they would like to have involved in the initiative. So that's just one of the ideas that have come forward from the Boyle side of things on a longer term. So why have the town teams worked? Previously, as we said, we would have had demotivated towns. There's a new spirit of self-help among the volunteers in the towns. They really realise that for their towns to thrive and flourish, it's going to take a bottom-up approach, and the towns that are more active and positive will get there first. There wasn't much collaboration amongst the groups in the towns. While there was a pride of place among the people in the town, there wasn't a platform for delivery among the groups or a collaborative body that was bringing it all together, and the town team has filled that gap very much. And then there wasn't much of a collaborative agency approach, whereas now the local enterprise office, ourselves and the leader partnership very much work together on this project. There would have been mistrust and frustration towards the council at the initial stages. That may be there at some degree. We're very much working on that. We realise it can't be changed overnight, But very much we are working on gradually turning that around, and we're turning it around through project delivery, not just through talking. So small projects, medium projects, long-term projects, getting the trust around and working with people and working with them to get their ideas and develop them into projects rather than our ideas being pushed onto the people. This is just a list of some of the other projects that the town teams have developed. I'll quickly run through them. Local heritage and recreation trails have been redeveloped. Town centre business friendly car park initiatives where there were green spaces painted outside key business premises where people can only park for an hour and a half to ensure that the cars can't park there for the whole day to support businesses. CCTV installation to support purple flag application, community retail surveys, shop local promotions. The town teams hosted business mentor sessions, derelict premises rejuvenation schemes, outdoor exercise equipment, support for local festivals, markets and events, very important. Installation of permanent streetscape enhancements, seating, flower arrangements, public realm features and landscaping, again all very important to develop the town centre. Youth engagement initiatives and an age-friendly pile in town. On the right hand side you will see the Gallo Glass Warrior in Ballahadreen. It's just another example of how the local authority has listened to our town team. Our arts department had a competition to develop an art sculpture for the N5 bypass in Ballahadreen. So our artists from all over the country came back with their ideas and there was a vote and the winner was a sword stuck in the ground. So this proposal was put before the town team in Ballahadreen and they decided that they weren't happy with this, that it didn't really fit in with the heritage and culture of the area, and they came back with a proposal to develop a Gallo Glass Warrior who is very much synonymous with the Ballahadreen and the western region. So the artist took this on board and developed this fantastic warrior sculpture as you can see there. Some of the learning points from our own perspectives. Some of the difficulties, there will be cliques in whatever kind of group you're getting together, so we very much try to separate those cliques into different working groups, get people working with people they haven't been working with before. Group politics, you might find that some groups may try and take over the town team and get all their members onto it, so we put in place an advice where there would be a limited number of group representation on the actual town team committee to stop domination from some of the stronger groups. Demands on volunteer time. Some volunteers either find themselves taking on all the work or like to take on all the work and then have issues disseminating it, so we very much support them to disseminate it and encourage them to disseminate it among the project groups to get a good spread among all of the groups. There is a fear of administration among some of the volunteers, so we very much have worked collaboratively with the Leader Partnership and the Local Enterprise Office to remove that administration burden from our groups and support them with funding applications and then rolling out the projects once funding applications have been successful. Occasionally you might find negative people. It's understandable, we're coming out from economic downturn. So we tried our best to highlight our achievements as we went along, encourage these people, and I think one of the most important lessons was to give them an actual job and say, well look, that's how things are now, here's a project that you can take on to make things better, see how you get on with that, get back to us. And you'll gradually see the negative people turning towards a more positive outlook for their town. And inclusiveness is very much something that the local authority are very much behind, so we will constantly be asking our town teams, especially at the start, to evaluate the membership of their committee to ensure that socially inclusive groups were included in it. So that's how we have got on with our town teams. We are very much open for business and looking for innovative new ways, and most importantly we are building the capacities of our volunteers and our community groups to drive that forward with ourselves. Thank you.